The water hit me before I realized her hands had left my back. 1 second I was standing at the edge of the deep end, the humid Alabama air pressing against my silk dress. The next, chlorine filled my nose. I could not swim. My feet kicked at empty space. I opened my mouth to pull in air and swallowed pool water instead. The panic set in sharp and cold. My arms thrashed, breaking the surface just long enough to hear the sound echoing off the country club patio. Laughter. They were laughing. Hands grabbed my shoulders. 2 groomsmen hauled me over the concrete edge. I collapsed onto the wet tile, coughing up water, my chest burning with every breath. I pushed my wet hair out of my eyes and looked up. Madison stood near the microphone stand, her custom white gown glowing under the string lights. She pointed at me, her smile wide. "It is just for fun," she said, her voice amplified across the lawn. "Our first viral moment." My father Richard stepped forward. He did not hand me a towel. He leaned down, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Do not make a scene, Scarlett. Go dry off." I sat there, on the concrete, water pooling around my knees. I did not scream. I did not cry. Before I tell you what I did next, I hope you are doing well today. Let me know your age in the comments and where you are watching from, and subscribe to Grape Vengeance so you never miss a story. I stood up. I wrung the heavy water from the hem of my dress. I walked past the groomsmen, past my father, and past the 3 camera crews filming Madison and her new husband Bradley. I kept walking until I reached the gravel parking lot. I unlocked my car, slid into the driver's seat, and locked the doors. The air conditioning kicked on, chilling my soaked skin. I reached into the back seat and pulled my laptop onto my lap. Madison and Bradley called themselves lifestyle influencers. They were currently streaming their wedding to 50,000 followers, a broadcast sponsored by a national brand. What their followers did not know, and what my family chose to ignore, was that I built their digital empire. The servers, the payment gateways, the custom software licenses running their storefronts. I designed it all. I maintained it all. I did it for free because my parents called it my duty as the older sister. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I watched the live feed on my screen. Bradley raised his champagne glass, preparing to give his toast. I clicked the administration panel. I typed in my master password. I did not hesitate. I revoked their administrative access. I deleted the primary hosting keys. I clicked the final button to terminate the network connection. On my screen, Bradley opened his mouth to speak. Then the video feed froze. A split second later, the screen went black. A connection error message appeared. I closed my laptop. I pulled onto the highway heading north toward Birmingham. My wet dress clung to the leather seat, soaking through to the cushion. I turned the air conditioning down, but the chill had already settled deep into my bones. My chest ached with every shallow breath. The sharp scent of chlorine filled the enclosed space of my car, a constant, suffocating reminder of the water rushing into my mouth. I kept my hands locked on the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. I focused strictly on the painted lines marking the dark asphalt. I refused to look in the rearview mirror. I did not want to see the glowing lights of the country club fading into the distance. My phone sat face up on the passenger seat. 2 minutes after I merged onto the interstate, the screen lit up, piercing the dim cabin. The device began to vibrate. It buzzed against the leather, a relentless hum that echoed my racing heartbeat. I glanced over. The screen displayed a notification. Missed call from Madison. Then another. Then a text message. Then 3 more texts in rapid succession. The phone did not stop buzzing. It rang, went to voicemail, and immediately began ringing again. I kept my foot pressed against the gas pedal. I let it ring. 47 missed calls flooded my screen in under 3 minutes. When I finally reached a red light at an empty rural intersection, I picked up the phone. Madison had sent a wall of text messages. The tone shifted with every single paragraph, tracing her descent from entitlement into sheer panic. The first text read, "Where are you? Get back here right now. People are asking questions." The second text arrived a minute later. It read, "Why is the site down? Fix it. The sponsor link is dead. The broadcast dropped in front of 50,000 people. Fix this right now." The final text lost all of its demanding authority. It read, "Scarlett, please answer the phone. Bradley is freaking out. The investors are calling him." "What did you do?" I did not type a response. The light turned green. I drove until I found a brightly lit gas station. I swerved into the lot and parked near the edge of the pavement, far from the fuel pumps and the glare of the overhead canopy. I put the car in park and unbuckled my seatbelt. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the device. I told myself it was just the cold air blowing from the dashboard vents. A new notification popped up on the screen. A voicemail from Bradley. I pressed the speaker icon. His voice filled my car tight and breathless. "Scarlett, pick up the damn phone. I know you shut off the feed. You are ruining a $50,000 sponsored broadcast. The cosmetics team is emailing me right now. Turn the servers back on. You do not understand what is at stake here. This is our main revenue stream. Turn it back on, or I swear I will make you pay for this." He hung up. The recording ended with a sharp, digital click. Bradley was right about one specific detail. I knew exactly what was at stake. What he and Madison failed to grasp was that I built the stake with my own two hands. For the past 3 years, my sister and her husband paraded around Alabama as self-made lifestyle influencers. They secured sponsorships, sold branded merchandise, and hosted exclusive online events. But the foundation of their entire brand did not belong to them. It belonged to me. I designed their visual branding from scratch. I wrote the underlying code for their custom payment gateways. I integrated advanced artificial intelligence tools into their digital storefronts to track user engagement and optimize their sales funnels. I did the work of an entire technical department, pulling all night shifts from my small apartment while working my actual day job. I never received a single paycheck for those countless hours. I never saw a dime of the profits they flaunted online. Whenever I brought up compensation or a fair contract, my parents intervened. My mother would call me using that soft, disappointed tone she had perfected over decades. She would tell me that family supports family. She would say Madison was the beautiful face of the brand, and it was my duty as the older sister to provide the technical brains to help her succeed. My father echoed the sentiment, telling me not to be greedy with my own blood. So I stayed quiet. I kept the servers running smoothly. I paid the domain renewal fees out of my own pocket. I allowed Madison to build a lucrative empire on my silent labor. I did all of that until she shoved me into the deep end of a swimming pool, knowing I could not swim, just to secure a viral video clip for her followers. I looked down at the phone in my hand. Madison and Bradley believed they were the brilliant CEOs of a modern tech company. They were about to learn they were merely unauthorized tenants in a digital building I owned. I opened my email application. I composed a message to the enterprise support team at my primary server hosting company. I did not use the standard customer service channels. I used the emergency security protocol I had configured for high-level breaches. The email was brief and precise. I instructed the hosting provider to initiate a hard lock on the entire domain structure. A hard lock meant no one could access the back-end reset passwords or migrate the data without providing notarized legal identification matching the original account owner. That owner was me. My legal name was on the registry. My personal credit card paid the initial setup fees. Madison and Bradley were listed merely as authorized users, a status I had already revoked from the parking lot. I hit send. Within 30 seconds, an automated reply arrived in my inbox. It confirmed the hard lock was active. The digital guillotine had fallen. By shutting down the network, I had not just ruined a single wedding broadcast. I had frozen their entire revenue stream. The merchandise store was dead. The sponsor affiliate links were dead. The paid subscriber portal was dead. Every link they had ever posted on their social media profiles now led to a blank white error page. My chest burned again, a sudden flare of pain beneath my ribs. I coughed hard, tasting the harsh chemical sting of the pool water at the back of my throat. I leaned my head against the steering wheel and closed my eyes. The initial rush of adrenaline that carried me out of the country club was beginning to fade, replaced by a deep, aching exhaustion. My lungs felt tight. Every inhale required conscious effort. The physical reality of nearly drowning was catching up to my body. My phone lit up again, breaking the silence in the car. This time it was not a text message. It was an automated alert from the security software I installed on the server backend. Someone was trying to bypass the hard lock. The notification displayed an unauthorized attempt to reset the master password using a secondary email address. They were not just panicking about the broadcast anymore. They were actively trying to hijack my intellectual property. They were trying to break into the system and steal the digital keys. I opened the detailed security log. The IP address originated from the country club Wi-Fi network. The billing method they attempted to use for the emergency recovery fee belonged to my father. Richard was handing them his credit card to help them break into my software. The betrayal hit me harder than the cold water. My own father watched me choke and thrash in the pool, told me not to make a scene, and was now funding a digital break-in to protect Madison's sponsor money. I saved the security log. I forwarded the time-stamped access attempt to my personal encrypted drive. Then I forwarded a copy to the attorney I retained for my freelance business. I put the car in gear and pulled out of the gas station lot. I knew I could not go home yet. I needed a formal medical record. I needed concrete proof of what happened in that water before my family had a chance to spin the narrative to their followers. I merged back onto the highway, pointing my car toward the nearest hospital emergency room in Birmingham. The highway lines blurred into a single streak of yellow as I drove toward Birmingham. Every breath I took felt like inhaling crushed glass. The adrenaline that had propelled me out of the country club parking lot evaporated, leaving behind a cold, trembling exhaustion. A deep cough seized my chest, forcing me to grip the steering wheel tighter to keep the car straight. I gagged, tasting the harsh chemical bite of pool water mixed with copper. My vision swam. I put my foot down on the gas pedal and focused solely on the glowing red signs of the hospital ahead. I parked near the emergency room entrance, the tires scraping against the concrete curb. Walking through the sliding glass doors took every ounce of strength I had left. The bright fluorescent lights overhead felt blinding. The triage nurse took one look at my pale face, my soaked silk dress, and listened to the wet, rattling sound echoing in my chest. She did not hand me a clipboard or point me toward the waiting area. She ushered me straight through a set of double doors into an examination room, her face tight with concern. The sterile smell of rubbing alcohol and bleached linens replaced the lingering scent of chlorine. A doctor arrived minutes later. He pressed a cold stethoscope to my back, instructing me to breathe deeply. I tried, but the effort triggered another fierce coughing fit that doubled me over the edge of the examination table. He pulled the stethoscope away, his expression serious. He explained the mechanics of secondary drowning to me. Water had entered my lungs, irritating the delicate tissue and causing dangerous inflammation. If left untreated, the fluid buildup could restrict oxygen flow entirely, causing the lungs to fail hours after leaving the pool. He ordered a chest X-ray immediately and connected my finger to a glowing oxygen monitor. I sat on the edge of the hospital bed, a thin paper gown clinging to my damp, shivering skin. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor filled the quiet room. Beside me, my phone sat on a plastic tray table, the screen lighting up the dark linoleum floor. I reached for it. I expected a message asking if I was safe. I expected anyone from my family to wonder where I went after nearly drowning in front of 100 guests. Instead, I saw a new thread of messages from my mother. Susan was a woman who valued appearances above all else. She hosted charity galas, wore designer pearls, and maintained a spotless colonial home, always projecting the image of a perfect Southern matriarch. Her text messages shattered that polished illusion. "You are so petty," the first message read. "It was a little water. Stop throwing a tantrum and turn the website back on before Bradley's investors pull out. You are embarrassing this family." I stared at the glowing words. My chest ached a physical pain that rivaled the burning in my lungs. She did not ask if I made it home. She did not ask if I needed dry clothes. She only cared about the sponsor money and the public image of her golden child. For years, I believed my mother loved us equally. I thought she just needed me to be the strong, independent one so she could focus on Madison's endless dramatic crises. Sitting in that cold hospital room, breathing through an oxygen tube, the truth became undeniable. I was not a daughter to them. I was a utility. The doctor returned with the X-ray results. He confirmed fluid settling in my lower lungs and prescribed a strong course of steroids and anti-inflammatory medication. He advised me to rest and monitor my breathing closely for the next 48 hours. Before he turned to leave, I stopped him. I asked him for a comprehensive medical report. I requested that he document the water aspiration, the lung irritation, and the specific risk of secondary drowning. I wanted the exact time of my admission and a detailed description of my physical condition upon arrival, printed on official hospital letterhead. He looked puzzled but nodded, printing the documents at the nurse's station. When he handed me the thick manila folder, I held it tight against my chest. This was no longer just a discharge summary. It was my first piece of hard, undeniable evidence. It proved the prank was a physical assault. I changed back into my damp clothes and walked out into the humid Alabama night. The digital clock on my dashboard read 2 a.m. I started the engine. As the car idled, my phone screen flashed with a new urgent notification. It was another automated alert from my server hosting company, but this one carried a higher security warning. Bradley was escalating his tactics. He had realized the password resets were blocked by my initial hard lock. Now he was attempting a forced domain transfer. He was trying to rip the entire website registry out of my name and move it to a new host under his own control. I opened the security log to read the details. He had submitted an expedited transfer request, claiming the original account owner was incapacitated. He uploaded a forged authorization form bearing a fake digital signature. To pay for the expensive expedited transfer fees, he used a credit card ending in 4 specific digits. I recognized those numbers instantly. It was my father's card. This was a hostile takeover. My family was sitting in their formal wear, sipping champagne at a country club reception, actively conspiring to steal my intellectual property. They intended to lock me out of my own software, take the digital infrastructure I spent 3 years building, and secure the lucrative sponsor money for themselves. They underestimated the security protocols I designed. The transfer attempt automatically triggered a secondary quarantine on the domain. The hosting provider froze the digital assets, entirely flagging the account for severe suspicious activity. I took screenshots of the forged authorization request and the time-stamped payment attempts. I attached them to a new email and sent them directly to my attorney. I added a brief note, explaining that the groom was now committing digital fraud using my father's financial information. I pulled out of the hospital parking lot, desperate for the safety of my own apartment. I needed a hot shower. I needed to sleep. I needed to wash the lingering smell of the pool off my skin. 10 minutes from my home, my phone chimed with a harsh, distinct ringtone. I glanced at the center console. A text message from Richard. My father never texted unless it was a dire emergency. He preferred to let my mother handle family communications while he managed his bank accounts and golf schedules. I opened the message while stopped at a red light. "Do not ignore your mother," the text read. "You have ruined your sister's special night over a childish grudge. Since you refuse to answer your phone, I am leaving the reception right now. I am driving to your apartment. We are going to handle this face to face, and you are going to fix what you broke. Do not try to lock the door on me." My stomach twisted into a tight, cold knot. My father was a large, imposing man who never accepted no for an answer. He was furious his credit card was flagged for fraud, and he was currently speeding through the dark streets to force my compliance. I pressed the accelerator, my tires squealing against the asphalt. I was exhausted, my lungs rattled with every inhale, and I had mere minutes to prepare before Richard arrived at my doorstep. I reached my apartment complex 5 minutes before my father. The tires of my sedan squeaked against the damp asphalt as I pulled into my designated parking space. I grabbed my purse, ignored the lingering dampness of my ruined silk dress, and sprinted up 3 flights of concrete stairs. I unlocked my front door, pushed inside, and threw the heavy brass deadbolt. I slid the metal chain into its track, the click echoing in the quiet entryway. I stood in the dark, my lungs burning with every jagged breath, waiting for the inevitable. Heavy footsteps echoed up the exterior stairwell, growing louder and heavier with every second. A fist pounded against the painted wood of my door. The frame rattled on its hinges. "Open this door right now!" Richard demanded. His voice carried the sharp, entitled tone of a man used to commanding obedience. "Do not test my patience, Scarlett." I did not turn the knob. I pressed the intercom button on my wall-mounted security panel. My voice came out raspy, damaged from the pool water. I told him I held a certified medical report documenting my lung injuries from the assault. I informed him that if he struck my door one more time, I would dial 911 and report a hostile trespasser. Silence fell over the hallway. Richard muttered a sharp curse. His heavy leather shoes scraped against the concrete as he retreated down the stairs. I slumped against the wall, sliding down to the hardwood floor. I survived the night, but the real war had just begun. Sunlight cut through the gaps in my living room blinds, pulling me from a restless sleep on my sofa. My chest felt tight, a dull ache lingering deep inside my ribs. My lungs rattled, a wet, heavy sound that terrified me. I unscrewed the cap of the steroid medication the emergency room doctor prescribed, swallowed 2 pills with a glass of tap water, and made a cup of hot black tea, hoping the steam would soothe my raw throat. I carried my laptop to the kitchen counter, flipped the screen open, and logged into my secure email client. My inbox showed 30 new messages. Most were automated alerts from the hosting provider, confirming the domain lockdown remained secure against Bradley's hacking attempts. However, one specific message stood out, carrying a priority red flag. It originated from the legal department of a major national cosmetics brand. This company was the primary sponsor of Madison's wedding livestream, paying top dollar for exclusive product placement during the reception. I clicked the subject line. The tone of the email was formal, cold, and legally binding. The corporate attorneys addressed me directly as the Chief Executive Officer of Madison Vivian Lifestyle. They found my legal name on the software licenses and the domain registry. The executives were irate about the sudden broadcast blackout. They demanded a full refund of their $50,000 advance payment, threatening severe litigation if the funds were not returned within 3 business days. They assumed I controlled the business finances. They assumed I possessed their money. I took a slow sip of my tea, feeling the warmth travel down my throat. My sister had taken their hefty sponsorship check and spent it on custom floral arrangements, designer gowns, and rented luxury vehicles. Madison lived far beyond her means, using corporate cash to fund her illusion of wealth. I did not panic. I opened a separate encrypted folder on my hard drive. I gathered my initial development logs spanning 3 years of unpaid labor. I pulled the domain purchase receipts highlighting my personal credit card digits. I found the unexecuted contract I tried to present to Madison years ago, a document she laughed at and refused to sign. I drafted a polite, precise response to the cosmetics brand legal team. I explained my true role as an independent digital contractor. I provided bank statements and communication records proving I never received any financial compensation for my design services. I clarified that Madison and her husband Bradley were the sole operators of the business entity, holding exclusive control over all sponsorship funds and bank accounts. I attached the PDF documents to the email. I essentially handed a team of ruthless corporate lawyers a map pointing directly to my sister's doorstep. I clicked send, throwing Madison and Bradley to the corporate wolves. Less than an hour later, my cell phone rang. The caller ID displayed an unknown number. I answered, tapping the record button on my call application before bringing the device to my ear. Madison began screaming before I could even say a word. Her voice was shrill, lacking the polished, sweet internet persona she projected to her followers. She accused me of trying to bankrupt her out of pure, spiteful jealousy. The cosmetics brand just issued a breach of contract notice to my personal email, Madison yelled, her breath hitching. They are demanding their money back. We already paid the caterers and the venue. We do not have $50,000 sitting in checking. She did not stop to ask about my health. She did not apologize for the pool incident. She demanded I restore the website by noon. If I refused, she promised to go live on a backup social media platform and accuse me of corporate sabotage. She threatened to ruin my freelance design career by telling her loyal followers I hijacked her network in a jealous rage because I was single and bitter. I listened to her entire rant. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice or defend my actions. I let her reveal her true character to the recording application. I waited for her to run out of breath. When she paused, gasping for air, I simply ended the call. Emotional outbursts were useless. Cold, hard paperwork was permanent. I dialed my attorney, a sharp litigator who handled my freelance business contracts. I briefed him on the morning developments, forwarding the recorded phone call and the corporate email thread. I authorized him to draft a formal cease and desist order immediately. The legal document prohibited Madison and Bradley from using my proprietary software, my custom server configurations, or any branding graphics I created over the last 3 years. I was systematically dismantling their false empire piece by piece, relying on strict copyright law instead of family arguments. My lawyer dispatched the legal notice via certified mail and electronic delivery, ensuring they could not claim ignorance. While my attorney handled the legal filings, I needed to catalog the exact digital assets Madison had been using to estimate potential damages. I logged back into the server backend to pull the usage reports. I started browsing the root directories, checking the file structures to ensure no hidden backdoors remained open. Deep inside the server hierarchy, buried beneath folders of wedding photos and sponsored blog drafts, I found a hidden directory created by Bradley. The title read, Atlanta Tech Submission. My brow furrowed. Madison had recently bragged about landing a lucrative creative director position at a prestigious tech firm in Georgia, a job she was scheduled to start after her honeymoon. I clicked the folder icon to open the directory. What I found inside made my blood run cold, shifting this conflict from a simple family dispute into a devastating felony offense. I stared at the glowing folder on my screen. The title read, Atlanta Tech Submission. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I clicked the icon. The directory expanded, revealing dozens of high-resolution design files sorted into neat categories. I recognized the first file instantly. It was a comprehensive brand identity package I designed for a regional commercial bank in Mobile. The next file contained an artificial intelligence integrated user interface I built for a national logistics company. These were not generic wedding templates or simple social media graphics. They were my private, premium projects. I stored them on the server to maintain a secure backup of my professional portfolio. I opened the logistics interface file to inspect it closer. Something was wrong. My signature watermark, a tiny overlapping SV in the bottom right corner, was missing. Someone had meticulously cropped it out of every single layer. In its place, the name Madison Vivian sat in a sleek, modern font. My heart hammered against my ribs. I kept scrolling through the hidden directory. I found a subfolder labeled HR Documents. Inside sat a pristine PDF file named Madison Vivian Signed Offer. I opened it. The letterhead belonged to one of the most prestigious technology firms in Atlanta, Georgia. The document congratulated Madison on accepting the position of Senior Creative Director. The starting salary listed was $200,000 a year, plus a generous stock option package and a signing bonus. Madison never studied digital design. She barely knew how to resize a photo on her phone without calling me in a panic. Yet she had packaged my life work as her own. She sat in an interview room in Georgia, looked seasoned tech executives in the eye, and presented my late-night coding sessions as her own creative genius. She stole my portfolio to secure a life-altering income. The betrayal hit me harder than the cold water of the country club pool. For years, I sacrificed my weekends and skipped family holidays to build my freelance business from the ground up. I poured my soul into those projects. Madison took them with a few simple clicks. The pool incident suddenly took on a sinister new meaning. Madison did not push me into the water just to get a few laughs on her internet broadcast. She pushed me because she needed to break me down. She was secretly leeching off my talent to build her entire future. Whenever someone steals your identity, they have to convince themselves you are beneath them. Pushing a woman who cannot swim into the deep end was her twisted way of asserting dominance. She needed to see me thrash and choke so she could feel powerful while living a stolen life. I did not cry. My tears had dried up in the hospital emergency room. Instead, a cold, sharp focus settled over me. I opened a digital forensic tool I used for client security audits. I began extracting the metadata from every file in the hidden directory. Digital files leave permanent footprints. Every time a document is created, modified, or moved, the server records the exact time and the specific Internet Protocol address of the user. I ran the diagnostic program across the entire Atlanta Tech submission folder. The results populated in a neat, organized spreadsheet on my secondary monitor. The logs showed that Bradley's user account accessed my private backup folder 3 weeks before the wedding. He downloaded the high-resolution files. 2 days later, he uploaded the altered versions, with my watermarks erased. The IP address for the uploads traced back directly to the luxury apartment he shared with my sister. I had them. I had the digital fingerprints proving premeditated intellectual property theft. I exported the entire spreadsheet. I gathered the original files bearing my creation dates from 2 years ago, contrasting them against Madison's forged versions. I packaged everything into a single encrypted, compressed folder. I drafted a new email to my attorney, attaching the evidence file. I explained that Madison was currently defrauding a major corporation in Atlanta using my stolen assets. Because she submitted the fraudulent documents across state lines, she was likely committing federal wire fraud. I instructed my lawyer to prepare a formal preservation of evidence letter. I did not send the evidence to the tech firm yet. If I emailed their human resources department directly today, Madison would go on the defensive. She would tell her new bosses I was a bitter, jealous sister, trying to ruin her success with fake documents. I needed the revelation to happen through strict, undeniable legal channels. I needed her to fall into a trap she could not talk her way out of. Her new high-paying career was a fragile house of cards, built entirely on a server she no longer controlled. I held the keys, and I was going to let the corporate legal system tear her foundation apart. I hit send on the email to my attorney. My chest gave a sharp throb, reminding me of the physical toll the assault had taken on my body. I coughed, a dry, rattling sound echoing in the quiet apartment. The emergency room doctor had stressed the importance of starting my steroid prescription immediately to prevent the fluid in my lungs from causing a secondary drowning episode. I checked the clock on the wall. It was nearing noon. The local pharmacy down the street was open, and my prescription was waiting for pickup. I saved my work and closed my laptop, ensuring the screen locked securely behind a heavy encryption passcode. I grabbed my car keys and my wallet. I slipped on a thick, comfortable sweater to hide the lingering shivers that still racked my body. I needed the medicine, and I needed to breathe some fresh air before dealing with the inevitable legal storm. I opened my front door and stepped out into the hallway. The building was quiet, the midday sun casting long shadows across the carpeted floors. I walked toward the elevator bank, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer the quiet older sister taking orders. I was a plaintiff, building an airtight case against two thieves. I pressed the call button for the elevator. The metal doors slid open. I stepped inside and hit the button for the ground floor lobby. I watched the floor numbers light up as the car descended. I expected a quiet trip to the pharmacy. I expected a moment of peace to organize my thoughts. The elevator chimed, signaling my arrival at the ground floor. The doors slid open to reveal the bright glass-walled lobby of my apartment complex. I did not get a moment of peace. My mother, Susan, was standing next to the security desk, her designer handbag clutched tightly in her manicured hands. Her eyes locked onto me the second the elevator doors parted, and her pleasant, polished smile dropped into a hard, calculated stare. My mother stood near the polished marble reception desk, looking entirely out of place in my building. Susan preferred gated communities and private driveways, not downtown apartment lobbies. She wore a tailored beige trench coat tied neatly at the waist. Her blonde hair fell in perfect, unmoving waves around her shoulders. A designer leather handbag rested on her forearm. She looked like a woman on her way to a charity luncheon, not a mother visiting a daughter who had spent the night in an emergency room. When she saw me step out of the elevator, she did not rush forward to hug me. She did not ask how I was feeling. She offered a tight, practiced smile and walked toward me, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. "You look terrible, Scarlett," she said, her voice dropping into that soft, melodic tone she always used to deliver insults. "You really should have brushed your hair before coming downstairs." I tightened my grip on my sweater. My chest gave a dull throb, reminding me of the fluid sitting in my lower lungs. I did not have the energy to argue about my appearance. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Susan sighed, reaching out to brush a stray lock of hair from my shoulder. I stepped back before her fingers could make contact. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second before returning to its fixed position. "I came to check on you," she said. "Richard came home last night in a terrible mood. He said you threatened to call the police on him. You know your father has a temper. You should not provoke him when he is trying to fix your mistakes." My mistakes. I stared at her. My father tried to break down my door at 2 a.m, and she categorized it as my mistake. I realized right then why she was really here. Richard had failed to intimidate me into unlocking the servers. Bradley had failed to hack the domain. Madison was too busy fielding angry calls from her cosmetic sponsor. Susan was their last resort. They sent the matriarch to play the peacemaker, armed with decades of weaponized guilt. I slid my right hand into the deep pocket of my sweater. My fingers found the cold metal edge of my cell phone. Without looking down, I traced the screen with my thumb. I knew the layout of my device by heart. I swiped down, tapped the utility folder, and pressed the icon for the voice memo application. A short, single vibration pulsed against my leg. The recording was active. "I am on my way to the pharmacy," I told her, keeping my voice even. "I have a prescription for steroids. The hospital doctor diagnosed me with secondary drowning. Water entered my lungs when Madison pushed me. Susan waved her hand in the air, dismissing my medical diagnosis as if it were a minor cold. "Oh, stop being so dramatic," she said. "It was a tiny splash in a swimming pool. You ruined your sister's special night over a childish prank. Do you have any idea how embarrassed we were? The caterers were whispering. The photographers did not know what to do. You made a spectacle of yourself. And then you threw a tantrum and shut down her business." I kept my hand in my pocket, ensuring the microphone was unobstructed. I needed to guide the conversation. I needed her to speak clearly about the hidden directory. "Her business," I repeated. "You mean the website I built, the servers I pay for?" Susan lowered her voice, glancing around the empty lobby to ensure the security guard was out of earshot. "Family must protect family, Scarlett. We all make sacrifices. Madison is the face of this family. She has the charisma. She has the followers. You have always been happy working behind the scenes. There is no shame in being the quiet one." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. The quiet one. That was how they viewed my career. My late nights writing code, my client meetings, my advanced degree. To them, it was just a hobby meant to support Madison's spotlight. "If she is so charismatic," I said, "why did she need to steal my private portfolio to get a job in Georgia?" Susan did not gasp. She did not look shocked. She simply adjusted the strap of her leather handbag. "She did not steal anything," Susan replied smoothly. "She borrowed some of your old layouts for her interview. It is called family sharing. You have hundreds of those little computer drawings on your hard drive. She just needed a few to show the executives she understood corporate branding." I pressed her for specifics. I needed undeniable proof on the digital audio file. "You mean the artificial intelligence interface I designed for the logistics company?" I asked. "You mean the branding package I created for the commercial bank in Mobile?" She took those specific files, erased my watermarks, and put her own name on them. Susan rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed that I was obsessing over the details. "Yes, Scarlett. The bank thing and the logistics, whatever. She needed premium examples to secure the senior creative director position. Do you know how much that tech firm is paying her? $200,000 a year, plus a signing bonus. This is the opportunity of a lifetime for her and Bradley. You cannot ruin her marriage and her new career over a little splash in the pool." I had it. The confession was crystal clear. She admitted Madison took the specific corporate files. She admitted Madison presented them as her own work to secure a high-paying job. She confirmed the exact salary. The audio file currently saving to my phone was a legal gold mine. Susan unzipped her handbag. She reached inside and pulled out a thick manila envelope. She unclasped the metal tab and slid a stack of printed papers into her hand. She held them out toward me, along with a silver ink pen. I read the bold black text at the top of the first page. "Retroactive transfer of intellectual property rights. Bradley had a lawyer draft this up this morning," Susan explained, her tone shifting from motherly to commanding. "It transfers the copyright of the wedding templates, the website backend, and those corporate portfolio files to Madison. It backdates the ownership to last year." I stared at the paperwork. The sheer audacity of the demand left me speechless for a brief moment. They were not just asking for forgiveness. They were demanding I sign away my career, my previous client work, and my digital infrastructure to retroactively cover up Madison's felony fraud. "If you sign this right now," Susan continued, "we can call the cosmetics sponsor and tell them it was a simple administrative error. We can restore the website. Madison keeps her job in Atlanta. Everything goes back to normal. We can forgive you for the scene you caused at the reception." I looked at the silver pen in her hand. Then I looked into my mother's eyes. I saw no remorse. I saw no love. I only saw a transaction. "I am not signing that," I said. Susan stiffened. Her manicured fingers gripped the edges of the paper until her knuckles turned white. "Do not be stupid, Scarlett," she hissed. "You are putting this entire family in jeopardy. If the cosmetics company pulls their money, Bradley's investors will walk away. If the Atlanta firm finds out those designs are yours, Madison loses her signing bonus. They cannot afford their new mortgage without that money. You will destroy them." "They destroyed themselves," I replied. "I did not force Madison to lie on a job application. I did not force Bradley to commit wire fraud using Dad's credit card, and I certainly did not force anyone to push me into the deep end of a pool." I turned my back on her and walked toward the glass revolving doors. Scarlett Susan yelled, her voice echoing off the marble walls, finally losing her composed facade. "If you walk out that door, you are dead to this family. We will cut you off. You will have no one." I pushed through the heavy glass door and stepped out into the warm afternoon sun. I did not look back. I walked 2 blocks down the pavement until I reached the local pharmacy. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and ended the voice recording. I played back the final 30 seconds, lifting the speaker to my ear. The audio was pristine. Every threat, every admission of theft, every arrogant demand was captured in high-definition sound. I walked up to the pharmacy counter and paid for my steroid prescription. My lungs ached, but my mind felt sharper than it had in years. I swallowed my first dose of medication right there in the store aisle. I sat on a wooden bench outside the pharmacy, watching the street traffic pass by. Susan demanded I fix the situation to save Madison's sponsor money. Instead, I opened my secure email client. I attached the audio recording of my mother's confession to the digital forensic logs I compiled earlier. I sent the entire package to my attorney with a single line of text. "File the copyright strikes. Take everything down." I leaned back against the bench, letting the digital war begin. But as I closed my eyes to rest my aching chest, my phone screen illuminated with a new, unexpected notification. Madison had not waited for Susan to return with the signed contract. Realizing the website was lost, my sister had just launched a vicious counterattack online, aiming directly at my remaining freelance clients. The notification on my phone screen glowed in the bright afternoon sun. Madison had posted a text graphic on her Instagram story. It tagged 3 of my biggest freelance clients, claiming I was experiencing a severe mental health crisis. She warned them to secure their private data, implying I was unstable and dangerous. She was trying to ruin my professional reputation before I could dismantle her fake empire. I did not reply to her desperate post. I opened the encrypted message thread with my attorney. The text I sent consisted of 4 simple words. Execute the copyright strike. My lawyer did not waste a single minute. He utilized a specialized legal portal designed for rapid intellectual property enforcement. He submitted formal Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown notices to every major social media platform hosting my sister. He uploaded the time-stamped original design files, the server access logs, and the pristine audio recording of my mother admitting to the theft. He specifically targeted the custom logos, the transition graphics on her videos, and the branded overlay filters. Because my proprietary design work was deeply embedded in every single piece of content Madison ever posted, the platforms had no choice but to take immediate action. I sat on the wooden bench outside the pharmacy, sipping cold water to soothe my raw throat, and watched the digital execution happen in real time. I opened the Instagram application and searched for her profile. For a brief second, the screen displayed her 3 million followers and thousands of glossy, curated photos. I pulled the screen down to refresh the page. The loading circle spun. When it stopped, the smiling profile picture turned into a gray, faceless placeholder. The photo grid vanished. A bold banner declared the account suspended for severe intellectual property violations. I switched over to YouTube. Madison uploaded weekly lifestyle vlogs, generating significant advertising revenue from her loyal audience. I typed her channel name into the search bar. The query returned a generic error page. Her entire video library, built on the animated intro sequences I coded from scratch, disappeared into the digital void. TikTok followed 10 minutes later. Her curated life, her sponsored product reviews, her bridal preparation diaries, all erased without a trace. The purge extended far beyond my sister. Bradley branded himself as an entrepreneurial visionary on his professional networking profiles. His LinkedIn page listed him as the founder of a technology startup, linking directly to the servers I had locked down earlier that morning. My legal counsel submitted a fraud report to the networking site, highlighting the dead domain and the stolen back-end code. Within the hour, Bradley received his own suspension notice. His digital resume, crucial for securing investor meetings, turned into a broken hyperlink. The family plunged into total darkness. They lost their megaphones, they lost their audience. More importantly, they lost their ability to generate income. My phone buzzed in my hand, breaking the quiet hum of the street traffic. Richard sent a new text message. His tone shifted from demanding to furious. The words practically jumped off the screen. "I do not know what kind of computer trick you are pulling," the message read. "You are destroying your sister. Turn her accounts back on right now. If you do not fix this by sunset, you are no longer my daughter. I will cut you out of this family forever." A threat of disownment might terrify some people. To me, it sounded like freedom. I did not type an emotional paragraph defending myself. I did not ask for his love or understanding. I opened my photo gallery and selected a screenshot of the official legal approval from the Copyright Enforcement Portal. The image displayed a certified digital stamp confirming the permanent removal of the infringing accounts. I attached the picture, hit send, and blocked my father's phone number. Across town, sheer panic consumed my sister. Without her social media platforms, she could not fulfill her contractual obligations to her sponsors. The cosmetics brand would sue her for breach of contract. The luxury caterers would demand payment for the wedding reception. She needed to reach her followers immediately to control the narrative. She tried to bypass the ban by creating a secondary profile under a new handle. I watched a notification pop up from an automated tracking software my lawyer installed. A new account, titled Madison Vivian Official Backup, went live. It lasted exactly 3 minutes. My legal team anticipated this exact maneuver. When they submitted the initial takedown requests, they included the Internet Protocol addresses associated with Madison and Bradley's luxury apartment. The platforms recognized the specific digital footprint. The automated security systems flagged the new registration and terminated it instantly. She was digitally exiled. No matter what device she used on that home network, the system would reject her attempts to log in. I stood up and walked back toward my apartment building. My lungs felt slightly less constricted as the steroid medication began to work its way through my system. I felt a profound sense of clarity. For 3 years, Madison paraded around as a self-made success story while treating me like an unpaid servant. She pushed me into a pool, risking my life simply because she wanted a funny video to share with strangers. Now she had nothing to share. She was just a woman, sitting in an expensive apartment staring at a blank phone screen. The financial gravity of this situation was staggering. The cosmetics sponsorship alone was worth $50,000. The advertising revenue from her videos brought in thousands more each month. The tech job in Georgia, which hinged entirely on the stolen portfolio, promised $200,000 a year. By defending my own intellectual property, I had jeopardized over $250,000 in projected family revenue. They were bleeding cash, and they had no way to stop it. The illusion of their wealthy, perfect life shattered the moment the servers went dark. I walked through the glass doors of my lobby, ignoring the security guard who watched my mother storm out earlier. I rode the elevator up to my floor, enjoying the quiet hum of the machinery. However, cornered animals are unpredictable. Madison and Bradley could no longer attack me digitally. They could not command my father to intimidate me, and they could not charm my mother into forcing my compliance. They were losing everything, and they needed a scapegoat to survive the impending lawsuits from their sponsors. If they could not use their own platforms to speak, they would find someone else to broadcast their lies. As I unlocked my apartment door and stepped inside, my cell phone rang. It was my attorney. I answered the call, expecting an update on the copyright filings. Instead, his voice sounded uncharacteristically tense. He instructed me to turn on my laptop and navigate to a specific local internet broadcast. Madison had found a new microphone, and her fabricated story was about to escalate this war onto a very public stage. I carried my laptop to the kitchen island, wincing as a sharp ache radiated through my chest. The steroid medication had eased my breathing, but the bruised feeling in my ribs served as a constant reminder of the assault. I opened the web browser and pasted the uniform resource locator my attorney had forwarded. The link directed me to a local internet broadcast. The show was a popular gossip and lifestyle program based out of Birmingham, hosted by a woman named Brittany. Brittany was a former sorority sister of Madison. I knew exactly what kind of platform this was. It was a friendly echo chamber designed to validate whatever story my sister wanted to spin. It offered a safe harbor for her lies, devoid of critical questions or demands for proof. I clicked the play icon. The video feed loaded on my screen. Madison sat in a plush pink chair across from the host. She wore a plain gray oversized sweater, pushing the sleeves up to her elbows. Her hair was pulled back into a messy, uneven knot. She wore zero makeup, allowing the dark circles under her eyes to feature prominently. The glamorous, confident bride who laughed at my drowning just 24 hours ago was gone. In her place sat a fragile, heartbroken victim. It was a masterful, calculated performance. Brittany leaned forward, her voice dripping with practiced sympathy. She asked Madison how she was coping after the devastating events at her reception. Madison looked down at her lap. She let out a long, shaky breath, her shoulders trembling. She raised her head and looked directly into the camera lens, her eyes wide and shining with unshed tears. "It has been a living nightmare," Madison whispered, dabbing her dry cheek with a tissue. "We just wanted a beautiful evening to celebrate our love with family. Instead, my older sister suffered a severe mental breakdown right in the middle of the cocktail hour." My stomach tightened into a hard knot. I watched the screen in silence as my sister wove an intricate tapestry of deception. Madison claimed I had been acting erratic and unstable for months leading up to the ceremony. She told Brittany that I harbored a deep, toxic jealousy regarding her relationship with Bradley. Then she delivered the fatal lie. She looked straight into the lens and swore that I intentionally threw myself into the deep end of the swimming pool to steal the spotlight away from her first dance. She stated I faked a drowning panic attack to ruin her special night out of pure spite. But that is not even the worst part, Madison continued, her voice cracking with manufactured grief. Because we tried to get her psychiatric help, she is now holding our entire business hostage. She hacked into our website backend. She locked us out of our own livelihood. She is demanding an exorbitant amount of money to give us our brand back. We are terrified of what she might do to us next. Brittany gasped, reaching across the small table to pat Madison on the knee. The host labeled my alleged actions an unforgivable betrayal. She turned to the camera and urged her viewers to send love prayers and support to the newlyweds during this dark, traumatic time. I closed the browser tab. The quiet hum of the refrigerator rushed back into the silent apartment. My sister realized she could not win in a courtroom. She knew she could not defeat digital forensics server logs or time-stamped access records. Her only remaining strategy was to try me in the court of public opinion. She needed to destroy my credibility before I could expose her corporate fraud. If she successfully painted me as an unstable, jealous extortionist, the tech firm in Georgia would dismiss my copyright claims as the ravings of a bitter sibling. The strategy worked with terrifying speed. The interview clip was sliced into shorter, highly shareable segments. Those segments flooded local social media feeds across Alabama. Within 2 hours, the broadcast accumulated tens of thousands of views. I scrolled through the comment sections under the video. The digital mob overflowed with vitriol. Strangers called me a monster. They labeled me a psycho. They referred to me as a jealous spinster who belonged in a locked psychiatric ward. The internet audience did not care about evidence or server receipts. They only cared about the emotional narrative my weeping sister fed them. The sting of public humiliation burned hot against my cheeks. Being betrayed by your own blood is a private agony. Watching your blood sell that betrayal to thousands of strangers for sympathy is a different kind of torture. Then, the real-world consequences of the smear campaign began to surface. My phone chimed with an incoming email notification. It did not originate from my legal counsel or the server hosting company. It came from the owner of a boutique real estate firm in Huntsville, one of my most reliable and lucrative freelance patrons. I opened the message. The tone was hesitant, brief, and cold. The owner explained that she had seen the viral videos circulating among local business networks. She expressed deep concern over the drama surrounding my name. She stated her firm valued stability and professionalism above all else, and she requested we pause our upcoming branding project until my personal situation resolved. 10 minutes later, a second patron emailed. A medical supply company in Montgomery asked to suspend my monthly retainer contract. They used the exact same word as the real estate owner. Drama. My breath caught in my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my palms against the cool granite of the kitchen counter to ground myself. Madison was not just attacking my character. She was actively destroying my actual income. The freelance agency I spent years building during late nights and early mornings, the revenue I relied on to pay my rent and buy my groceries, was evaporating because of a fabricated internet broadcast. A fierce urge to fight back roared inside my chest. I wanted to log on to every social media platform and scream the truth. I wanted to post the pristine audio recording of my mother admitting to the portfolio theft. I wanted to upload the official hospital documents proving my lungs were full of chlorinated pool water. I wanted to drag my sister through the digital mud and watch her pristine victim act shatter in front of her followers. I grabbed my cell phone. I opened a blank text document. I typed a furious, blistering response. I detailed the stolen corporate design files. I called out Bradley for his wire fraud attempts using my father's credit card. I laid out every single verifiable fact. My thumb hovered over the publish button. I stopped. I looked at the cursor blinking on the bright screen. If I posted the statement, I would be playing her exact game. Madison wanted a messy public shouting match. She wanted me to react with high emotion, proving her narrative that I was unhinged and vindictive. If I engaged in a digital screaming contest, the truth would vanish into the noise. The corporate executives in Atlanta would simply see two sisters throwing mud on the internet. My professional clients would view me as a permanent liability. Self-respect requires strict discipline. It means refusing to roll in the dirt with pigs because the pigs enjoy the mess and you only end up filthy. I deleted the drafted response. I locked my phone and set it face down on the counter. I chose silence. I dialed my attorney instead. When he answered the line, I did not sound hysterical or panicked. My voice was steady, calculated, and cold. I summarized the broadcast. I listed the specific lost client contracts. Add defamation to the list of civil charges I instructed him. Add tortious interference with business relations. Document every single view that interview receives. Calculate the exact dollar amount of the freelance revenue I lost today. We are going to make them pay for every single syllable." My legal counsel agreed. He advised me to maintain my strict silence online. He would handle the formal legal drafting behind closed doors. We were assembling a trap they would never see coming, building a case based on financial damages and proven slander. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, dark shadows across my living room floor. I sat on my sofa, pulling a thick woven blanket over my shoulders. The evening chill seeped through the window panes, causing me to shiver. The isolation felt heavy in the dark room. My parents abandoned me. My sister framed me. My patrons paused my contracts. For a brief moment, the villains seemed to hold all the winning cards. They manipulated the public narrative to absolute perfection. I prepared myself for a long, lonely weekend of organizing legal files and calculating financial damages alone in my apartment. The clock on the wall ticked past 9. I reached for my phone to set my morning alarm, ready to shut down for the night. Just as my fingers brushed the glass screen, the device vibrated. It was not an email from a concerned client. It was not a demanding text from my father. It was a direct message on a secure, encrypted communication application. The sender profile was blank. The phone number was unregistered. I hesitated, wondering if Bradley was attempting another digital trick to bypass my blocked contacts. I tapped the notification to read the preview text. The message contained 3 short lines of text and a large attached media file. The text read, "I was hired to film the wedding. Bradley never paid my final invoice. I saw the interview today. Madison is lying." My heart slammed against my ribs. I stared at the attached audio file. The balance of power was about to shift in a way my family could never anticipate. I stared at the glowing screen of my cell phone. The message sat in my encrypted inbox like an unexploded bomb. The sender identified himself as Jason. I recognized the name immediately. Jason was a 22-year-old film student from a local community college. Bradley hired him to shoot the behind-the-scenes footage for the wedding broadcast. My sister and her husband loved hiring young independent contractors. They promised these students incredible exposure and portfolio credit. Then, when the final invoices came due, Bradley always found a reason to withhold payment. He claimed the lighting was wrong or the audio levels were unbalanced. It was a classic scam to get free labor. Jason explained his situation in the text block. Bradley refused to pay the remaining $2,000 on his contract, citing the broadcast failure as an excuse to void the agreement. Jason watched Madison perform her tearful victim routine on the local podcast. He knew she was lying. He knew because he held the unedited audio files from the groom lapel microphone. He transferred a large sound file to my secure inbox. My hands shook as I tapped the download icon. The file size indicated a long recording. I walked into my bedroom and retrieved a pair of noise-canceling headphones. I plugged them into my laptop. I needed to hear every single detail without any ambient distraction. I sat at my kitchen island, the wood surface cold under my forearms. I took a deep breath, ignoring the persistent ache in my healing lungs. I pressed play. The audio track began with the rustling sound of fabric rubbing against a microphone. The lapel device captured the ambient noise of the country club preparation suite. I heard ice clinking in crystal glasses. I heard the low hum of the air conditioning unit. Then Bradley cleared his throat. "Is this thing on?" Bradley asked. Jason replied from a distance, confirming the microphone was live and recording the audio for the wedding video timeline. Jason then told the groom he was stepping out to set up the outdoor lighting fixtures. The heavy wooden door of the suite clicked shut. The room sounded empty for a few seconds. Then another door opened. High heels clicked across the hardwood floor. It was Madison. Her voice came through crisp and clear. "Are the cameras ready by the deep end of the pool?" Madison asked. Bradley confirmed they were in position. He told her the main sponsor feed would cut to that specific angle right after the first toast. The next voice on the recording made my stomach turn. It was Susan. My mother had entered the suite with Madison. "You need to make sure you push her hard enough so she goes all the way under," Susan instructed. "If she just falls on the shallow steps, it will not look funny. It will just look clumsy." Madison let out a sharp, breathless laugh. "Do not worry. I know exactly where to stand. Make sure the cameras are rolling when I push Scarlett in. She cannot swim, so she will panic and start thrashing around. It will go crazy on TikTok. The sponsors will love the engagement numbers." Susan chuckled a low, cruel sound that vibrated through my headphones. "Just make sure her makeup runs," my mother said. "I want her to look like a wet rat when she climbs out. It will teach her a lesson for wearing that expensive silk dress instead of the bridesmaid gown we picked out." Bradley chimed in, reminding them to act shocked as soon as I hit the water. He told Madison to grab the microphone and play it off as a spontaneous joke. The recording captured their entire coordinated plan. They plotted a physical assault. They targeted my inability to swim. They viewed my terror and potential drowning as a calculated marketing tool to boost their internet engagement. My own mother orchestrated the aesthetic details of my humiliation. The audio file ended. The silence in my headphones felt deafening. I pulled the headphones off and set them on the counter. A strange sense of calm washed over me. The confusion and the lingering hurt evaporated. You cannot grieve a family that never existed. The people on that audio recording were not my relatives. They were predators. They orchestrated a ruthless trap, pushed me into it, and then rushed to the internet to play the victims when I fought back. The balance of power shifted in a single heartbeat. Madison thought her fake tears on a local podcast would secure her victory. She did not realize her own husband wore a live wire that captured their profound malice. I no longer held just a civil copyright dispute or a simple defamation claim. I possessed undeniable proof of a coordinated assault. I picked up my phone and dialed my attorney. It was late in the evening, but I knew he would answer. He picked up on the second ring. I did not waste time with small talk. I told him to open his secure email client immediately. I forwarded the raw audio file while keeping him on the line. "Listen to the file right now," I instructed him. "I will wait." I sat in the quiet of my kitchen, listening to the faint sound of his breathing over the phone line. 2 minutes passed. 3 minutes. When he finally spoke, his professional, detached tone was gone. His voice carried a sharp edge of predatory excitement. "This is not just a civil matter anymore," my lawyer said. "This establishes intent. They knowingly planned to push a non-swimmer into deep water for financial gain. Your mother conspired with them. We have them cornered." I asked him about the legality of the recording. I needed to ensure a judge would not throw it out. My attorney explained the law clearly. Bradley was wearing a visible lapel microphone provided by a hired videographer. He knew he was being recorded. There was no expectation of privacy in that scenario. The audio was entirely admissible in both civil and criminal court proceedings. Jason handed us the smoking gun. "Do we release this to the press?" I asked. "Do we send it to that podcast host to clear my name?" My attorney stopped me immediately. He told me that releasing the audio to the public right now would be a tactical error. If we tipped our hand, the family would have time to formulate a defense. They would hire crisis management teams. They would claim the audio was altered or taken out of context. They would drag the battle through the media for months. "We are not going to fight them on the internet," my lawyer stated. "We are going to bury them in a courtroom." He laid out the new strategy. The copyright strikes were already dismantling their income. Now we would strike at their personal freedom and their remaining assets. My attorney would spend the night drafting a comprehensive civil lawsuit. We would sue Madison Bradley and my parents for assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and intellectual property theft. We would demand punitive damages so high it would bankrupt them. More importantly, my lawyer planned to send a formal preservation of evidence letter to the prestigious technology firm in Atlanta. The company that just hired Madison based on my stolen portfolio needed legal notice. If they ignored a formal subpoena regarding the fraudulent documents she submitted, they would become liable. We would force the executives to audit her job application. I want Bradley and his employer involved as well, I said, my voice steady and cold. He used his corporate server network to try and hack my domain yesterday. His employer needs to know he is committing digital fraud on company time. My lawyer agreed. He added the tech company Bradley worked for to the list of subpoena targets. We were weaving a legal net so tight they would never escape. I ended the call and walked over to my living room window. I looked out over the quiet Alabama streets. A few days ago, I was the obedient older sister, quietly running servers in the background while my family took the credit. Tonight I was a plaintiff, holding the power to destroy their entire fraudulent lives. Madison wanted a viral moment. Susan wanted me humiliated. Richard wanted me to remain silent and obedient. They built an empire on my labor and tried to drown me when I served my purpose. They were about to learn a very harsh lesson about actions and consequences. I did not feel lonely anymore. I felt equipped. I went into my home office and began organizing my financial records, preparing for the impending legal storm. I documented every dollar I spent on the server hosting. I highlighted every hour of unpaid labor. I was calculating the exact price of my vengeance. The trap was set. The paperwork was printing. The process servers would receive their instructions by morning. Tuesday morning brought a heavy thunderstorm that washed the streets of Birmingham in shades of gray. I sat across a polished mahogany desk in my attorney's downtown office. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the sharp scent of printer ink. My lawyer placed 4 distinct manila folders in front of me. They represented the arsenal we had quietly assembled over the past 48 hours. The first folder contained the official medical records from the emergency room, detailing the chlorinated fluid lingering in my lungs. The second folder held the extensive digital forensics logs, tracing the exact minute my sister stole my private portfolio. The third folder secured the pristine audio recording of Susan standing in my apartment lobby, proudly admitting to the theft. The final folder contained the raw lapel microphone audio from the wedding videographer, capturing the groom and the bride plotting a physical assault for internet views. My attorney compiled these disparate pieces of evidence into a single, devastating civil complaint. I picked up a heavy ink pen and turned to the signature page. We were officially suing Madison Bradley and my parents. The listed grievances read like a criminal rap sheet rather than a family dispute. Assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, copyright infringement, fraudulent conversion of digital assets. I signed my name on the dotted line. The ink dried quickly on the crisp white paper. I did not feel sad. I felt a profound sense of closure. We were not just hitting them in personal civil court. My lawyer explained our dual corporate strategy. We intended to drag their employers into the center of this legal firestorm. He drafted a formal preservation of evidence demand directed at the prestigious technology firm in Atlanta. He addressed the document directly to their corporate general counsel. The letter required the company to freeze and secure Madison's entire human resources file. It specifically highlighted the digital design portfolio she submitted to secure the role of senior creative director. The legal notice informed the corporate executives that their new hire obtained her position using stolen intellectual property belonging to a third-party plaintiff. Once, a team of corporate lawyers received a formal preservation letter, citing copyright theft. They were legally bound to investigate the matter. They could not ignore it without becoming liable themselves. Madison's fake career would shatter under the intense scrutiny of an internal corporate audit. She would walk into her new office, expecting a corner desk and a lucrative salary, only to find security guards waiting to escort her off the premises. Next, my attorney targeted Bradley. Bradley worked as a mid-level manager at a regional logistics corporation in Alabama. My secure server logs proved he utilized their corporate internet network to attempt a hostile takeover of my domain registry. My lawyer dispatched a formal notice to his employer's cybersecurity division. The document warned the logistics company that their internal infrastructure was used to commit digital fraud during business hours. Bradley would face an immediate internal investigation by his own information technology department. His professional reputation was about to implode. With the corporate trap set, it was time to deliver the primary lawsuit. Richard and Susan resided in Mountain Brook, an exclusive enclave known for manicured lawns, quiet wealth, and intense social competition. They prized their pristine reputation among their wealthy neighbors above everything else. We hired a private process server to deliver the legal documents during the peak hours of a sunny afternoon. I returned to my apartment and waited. At 3 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a delivery confirmation alert. The process server walked right up the sweeping brick driveway of the family estate. He handed a thick stack of legal filings directly to Richard, forcing my father to sign the receipt in full view of the passing neighborhood traffic. The arrogant silence from my family broke in spectacular fashion. The reality of their situation finally shattered their delusion. They were no longer dealing with an obedient older sister who took orders, fixed their computer glitches, and smiled through their disrespect. They were staring down a furious plaintiff armed with lethal, undeniable evidence. My phone remained quiet, but my attorney's office lines began ringing off the hook. The lawsuit demanded punitive damages that far exceeded the liquid value of their Mountain Brook estate. My parents faced the terrifying prospect of losing their home, their retirement accounts, and their social standing to cover the immense legal liabilities created by their golden child. Panic breeds betrayal. The united family front crumbled before the sun went down. My attorney called me just after dinner to report a fascinating development. He had received a frantic phone call from a defense lawyer claiming to represent Richard. Richard had retained individual counsel distinctly separate from Susan Madison and Bradley. The parents were turning on each other to save their own financial skins. Richard blamed Susan for visiting my apartment building and handing me a recorded confession on a silver platter. Susan blamed Richard for allowing Bradley to use his credit card to pay for the fraudulent server hacking attempts. They realized the sinking ship could not carry all of them, and they were scrambling for the lifeboats. Listening to my lawyer describe their fractured marriage brought me no joy, but it validated every boundary I had set. Toxic people will always sacrifice one another when the consequences finally arrive at their doorstep. I thanked my attorney for the update and ended the call. The rain outside had stopped, leaving the evening air cool and still. I walked into my kitchen to pour a glass of water. As I reached for the cabinet handle, my cell phone illuminated the dark countertop. The caller ID displayed Richard's private cell number. I let it ring 3 times. I debated letting it go to voicemail. Curiosity won. I swiped the screen and brought the speaker to my ear. I did not say hello. I simply waited. "Scarlett, please, do not hang up," my father pleaded. His commanding, entitled tone had vanished entirely. He sounded breathless older and genuinely terrified. The wealthy patriarch who tried to break down my front door 2 nights ago was gone. In his place was a desperate man facing total ruin. "I need to see you," Richard said. "I am sitting in my car outside your lawyer's office building. We can end this tonight. I can write you a check right now. $100,000, clear, untraceable cash. Just drop the lawsuit and give your sister her website back. Please." I gripped the edge of the granite counter. $100,000 was a staggering sum of money for an impromptu bribe. it was also a massive red flag. I knew my father's financial situation intimately. He managed his portfolio strictly. He did not keep that kind of liquid cash sitting idly in a checking account ready for a midnight withdrawal. To produce a check of that size on a Tuesday evening, he had to be pulling funds from a hidden source. I told him to wait in his car. I hung up the phone. The pool prank, the stolen portfolio, and the smear campaign were just the surface layers of their deception. I was about to uncover the darkest financial secret of our family history. A revelation that would send my father directly into the path of a felony conviction. The downtown streets were empty when I pulled into the parking garage. I dialed my attorney while navigating the concrete ramps. He was still sitting at his desk reviewing the corporate preservation letters we drafted earlier. I told him Richard was waiting outside his building with a 6-figure bribe. My lawyer did not hesitate. He told me to come up immediately. We were going to invite my father inside. I took the elevator to the 5th floor. My attorney stood in his glass-walled conference room, his suit jacket draped over the back of a chair. He pressed a button on the intercom panel to unlock the ground floor lobby doors for Richard. My father walked into the room 5 minutes later. He looked exhausted. His shoulders sagged under the weight of his tailored suit jacket. He did not bring his usual commanding presence. He sank into a leather chair across the table, rubbing his temples. He played the role of a weary patriarch trying to save his fractured family. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a standard bank checkbook. He clicked a pen and wrote a number: $100,000. He slid the piece of paper across the polished mahogany table. "Take the money, Scarlett," he said. His voice sounded hollow. "Pay off your credit cards, buy a new car, put a down payment on a house, just drop the lawsuit. Call off the corporate notices. Give your sister her domain registry back so she can salvage her sponsorships. We can put this ugly chapter behind us." I stared at the check. The amount was written in his neat, practiced handwriting. I did not reach for it. I knew my father's financial habits intimately. He lived well, but he tied his wealth up in long-term investments, real estate, and retirement funds. He avoided holding large sums of liquid cash because he hated letting money sit without earning interest. To write a check of this size on a random Tuesday night meant he pulled it from an accessible separate account. "Where did you get this?" I asked. Richard blinked. He tried to maintain a calm facade, but a subtle tremor in his jaw betrayed his nerves. "It is family savings," he replied. "Money your mother and I set aside for rainy days. It does not matter where it came from. It clears tomorrow morning." I leaned forward. "You do not keep 6 figures in a checking account," I said. "You complain about the low interest rates on standard savings every Thanksgiving. If you liquidated a stock portfolio, it would take days to settle. If you took out a home equity loan, you would need Susan to sign the paperwork. You told me on the phone you were handling this alone. Where did this money originate?" He shifted in his chair, avoiding my gaze. He looked down at the table. "It came from an old escrow account," he muttered. "An estate holding. Just take the check." My attorney, who had remained silent until this moment, suddenly sat up straighter. He opened a fresh legal pad and picked up his pen. "An estate holding," my lawyer repeated. The tone of his voice sharpened, shifting from a passive observer to a predator sensing blood in the water. "Richard, are you referring to the Vivian Family Trust?" The color drained from my father's face. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I looked at my attorney, confused by the sudden shift in the room. He turned to me and explained a detail I had long forgotten. When my paternal grandmother passed away 10 years ago, she left a substantial trust fund. The terms dictated that the money would be divided equally between Madison and me upon our 25th birthdays. Richard was named the sole executor of the estate. I turned 25 5 years ago. I never received a single document, phone call, or penny regarding that inheritance. I assumed the money ran out paying for nursing home care before she died. My lawyer looked directly at Richard. Have you been utilizing a beneficiary trust as a personal slush fund? He asked. Richard wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead. It was not a slush fund, he stammered. The girls were young. They did not understand wealth management. I kept the funds consolidated to ensure they grew. I was protecting their financial future. My lawyer did not buy the excuse. If you were managing it for their future, why are you attempting to use it right now to bribe a plaintiff in a civil lawsuit? The pieces fell into place with sickening speed. Madison never held a real job before she started her influencer brand. Yet she lived in a luxury apartment. She drove a pristine foreign car. She hosted a $50,000 wedding reception. Bradley ran a technology startup that generated zero revenue for 2 years. They funded their lavish lifestyle with invisible money. You gave her my half, I whispered. The realization hit the bedrock of my soul. The pool assault and the stolen portfolio were just the surface layers of a much deeper, darker betrayal. My parents did not just ignore my hard work. They actively financed my sister's illusion of success using my stolen future. My father looked at me, his eyes pleading. Bradley needed seed capital for his company, Richard said, his voice trembling. Madison needed a down payment for her apartment so she could film her lifestyle content in a beautiful space. You were doing fine, Scarlett. You had a steady freelance income. You lived simply. You did not need the cash right then. I planned to pay your half back eventually. He planned to pay it back. He funneled my inheritance into a failing startup and a fake internet brand while I worked night shifts to pay my own rent. I designed the very software that Madison used to flaunt the wealth my father stole from me. I stood up. I picked up the check. I held it between my fingers, letting him watch as I tore the paper straight down the middle. I stacked the 2 pieces and tore them again. I dropped the shredded scraps onto the polished wood table. I do not want your bribe, I said. My attorney closed his legal pad. His expression mirrored concrete. Richard, my lawyer, said, his voice carrying the full weight of the impending legal storm. You just admitted to embezzling funds from a designated trust. You admitted to breaching your fiduciary duty as an executor. You deprived a beneficiary of her legal inheritance to fund high-risk personal ventures for another party. My father gripped the armrests of his chair. He looked like a man standing on the gallows, watching the trapdoor hinge unlock. We are filing an emergency motion tomorrow morning, my attorney continued. We will demand a full forensic audit of the grandmother's trust. The court will freeze all of your personal accounts during the investigation. When the judge discovers you drained a beneficiary fund, you will face felony embezzlement charges. You will face significant prison time. The weary patriarch act vanished. Richard stood up, his face flushed with genuine panic. You cannot do this to me, he yelled. I am your father. I gave everything. You gave me nothing, I replied. You took my inheritance to fund a golden child who pushed me into a pool because she thought I was beneath her. You stole from me. Now I am taking it all back. I pointed to the glass door. Get out, I told him. Richard stumbled backward. He looked at the shredded check on the table, realizing his desperate attempt to buy my silence had just handed us the weapon to destroy him. He turned and walked out of the conference room, his heavy footsteps echoing down the quiet hallway. The door clicked shut. I sat back down in my chair. The exhaustion weighed heavy on my shoulders, but my mind raced with the implications of the new discovery. The civil lawsuit was no longer our strongest weapon. We possessed a direct path to a criminal conviction. My lawyer booted up his computer. He pulled up the initial financial disclosure forms we needed to file the emergency audit motion. He warned me that a forensic investigation would tear the family finances apart down to the last penny. Every bank statement, every credit card receipt, every wire transfer would become public record. I told him to proceed. I wanted every single financial transaction exposed to the sunlight. I wanted the Atlanta tech firm Bradley's logistics employer and the cosmetics sponsor to see exactly how Madison built her fake empire. The forensic audit was going to reveal the absolute rot at the core of their image. But before the accountants could even begin combing through the ledgers, the corporate traps we set earlier that afternoon triggered an explosive chain reaction. The Atlanta tech firm had received our preservation letter, and their internal response was swift and merciless. The emergency motion landed on the judge's desk early Wednesday morning. Given the clear evidence of fiduciary breach, the court did not hesitate. A signed order authorized an immediate forensic audit of the Vivian Family Trust. By noon, official notices froze Richard's personal bank accounts, his retirement portfolios, and his home equity lines. The financial lockdown hit my parents without warning. Their debit cards declined at the grocery store. Their automatic bill payments bounced. The illusion of their comfortable Mountain Brook life shattered under the weight of a legal signature. My lawyer hired a team of seasoned forensic accountants to tear into the ledgers. They traced every wire transfer, every withdrawal, and every suspicious check written over the past 5 years. Numbers do not care about family loyalty or curated internet personas. Numbers tell the brutal, unfiltered truth. The audit exposed the profound rot at the core of my family's image. Bradley paraded around town as a visionary tech founder. He wore expensive suits and drove a luxury sedan. The ledgers revealed he was nothing but a fraud, drowning in obligations. His startup generated zero revenue. Instead, it accumulated $300,000 in debt. He owed money to private lenders, credit card companies, and equipment leasing firms. The only thing keeping him out of bankruptcy was the steady stream of cash Richard illegally funneled from my grandmother's trust. Madison's lifestyle empire proved equally hollow. Her brand never turned a single dime of actual profit. She secured a few lucrative sponsorships, like the cosmetics deal, but she spent the revenue faster than it arrived. Every designer handbag she flaunted on camera, the custom floral arrangements at her reception, and the down payment on her luxury apartment came directly from my stolen inheritance. My father literally bought her success using my future. The accountants documented every stolen penny. My attorney packaged their preliminary findings and prepared to use them in our civil lawsuit. But the financial bleeding was only the first wave of consequences. The corporate traps we set earlier in the week began to snap shut, one by one. The preservation letter arrived at the prestigious technology firm in Atlanta. The document landed directly on the desk of their corporate general counsel. A multi-billion-dollar tech company does not ignore legal threats regarding intellectual property. The executives immediately locked Madison out of their internal onboarding portals. They pulled her human resources file and convened an emergency meeting. The corporate legal team compared the portfolio Madison submitted during her interviews against the timestamped server logs my lawyer provided. The digital footprints matched perfectly. They saw where the original watermarks used to be. The executives realized their new senior creative director was a liability who lied on her application. They did not invite my sister to a polite termination meeting. They sent a cold, swift legal notice voiding her employment contract. They revoked her $200,000 salary and canceled her signing bonus. Furthermore, because Madison signed those lucrative onboarding documents crossing state lines using stolen assets, the company refused to let the issue slide. Their legal department contacted local authorities in Georgia. They filed a formal police report against my sister for wire fraud. Her dream job vanished in an afternoon, replaced by a looming criminal investigation. While Madison lost her future in Atlanta, Bradley lost his present reality in Alabama. The cybersecurity division at the Regional Logistics Corporation received my attorney's warning. The IT managers reviewed Bradley's terminal history. They matched his employee login credentials to the exact timestamps on my domain security alerts. The data proved he spent his working hours utilizing their corporate infrastructure to attempt a hostile digital takeover of my web servers. Corporate compliance policies are strict regarding unauthorized hacking. Two security guards approached Bradley's cubicle just before his lunch break. They ordered him to step away from his computer. They handed him a cardboard box and gave him 5 minutes to pack his personal belongings. They escorted him through the crowded office, out the front doors, and off the property. He lost his salary, his health insurance, and his professional reputation in the span of 30 minutes. The pillars of their arrogant life were collapsing rapidly. Every choice they made to elevate themselves at my expense returned to crush them. The public fallout followed the corporate ruin. Brittany, the podcast host, who gave Madison a platform to spread vicious lies, received a certified cease and desist letter from my legal team. The document outlined a ruinous defamation lawsuit targeting her personal production company. It detailed the exact financial damages I suffered when my freelance clients paused their contracts due to her broadcast. Faced with the prospect of losing her own business, Brittany's loyalty to my sister evaporated instantly. She deleted the tearful interview video from every platform. She replaced it with a stark, black and white text graphic on her social media pages. The post served as a formal public retraction. She apologized for spreading unverified falsehoods, clarified that I was the victim of a coordinated theft, and firmly distanced herself from the Vivian family. The retraction acted like a beacon. The internet mob that spent days calling me a bitter, jealous monster suddenly shifted its focus. The comments sections turned against Madison. Her former fans expressed disgust over her lies. The few sponsors she had left quietly severed their ties. Her curated victim narrative crumbled into dust. I watched the escalation unfold from the quiet safety of my home office. I did not log on to the internet to gloat. I did not post triumphant messages celebrating their downfall. I focused entirely on my own life. I forwarded the podcast retraction to the real estate owner in Huntsville and the medical supply company in Montgomery. Both clients replied within the hour, apologizing for jumping to conclusions and immediately reinstating my freelance contracts. My revenue stream stabilized. My lungs continued to heal under the steady dose of steroid medication. The bruises on my ribs faded into dull yellow shadows. I spent my days designing new branding packages, coding fresh interfaces, and expanding my client list. I built my wealth honestly, far away from the toxic reach of my parents. Richard and Susan were trapped in their Mountain Brook estate, surrounded by frozen bank accounts and mounting legal bills. Madison and Bradley sat in their luxury apartment unemployed, humiliated, and facing potential criminal charges. They prioritized appearances over basic human decency, and now they were stripped naked, financially and professionally. The civil lawsuit was progressing through the local court system. My attorney scheduled formal legal depositions for the end of the month. We required Madison, Bradley, Richard, and Susan to sit in a sterile conference room and answer questions under oath. They still believed they could charm their way out of the consequences. They thought they could sit across a table from my lawyer and spin a new web of lies to protect their remaining assets. They assumed it would be their word against mine. They had no idea I possessed the pristine audio recording of my mother confessing in the lobby. They did not know the wedding videographer handed us the raw lapel microphone file, proving they planned to drown me for internet views. The trap was fully armed, waiting in the shadows. The final confrontation was drawing near, and I was ready to watch them swear on the record before springing the ultimate, devastating surprise. The final Friday of the month arrived with a stifling heat that baked the Birmingham pavement. I rode the elevator to the 20th floor of my attorney's office building. We were utilizing a large, sterile conference room for the legal depositions. The space offered no warmth. Gray carpet covered the floor, a long glass table occupied the center of the room. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A licensed court reporter sat near the window, adjusting her stenography machine. My family arrived 10 minutes late. They walked through the glass double doors with their respective defense lawyers trailing behind them. Susan wore a tailored navy blazer and pearls, projecting the image of a reasonable, wealthy matriarch. Madison dressed in a modest pastel cardigan, attempting to look innocent and fragile. Bradley kept his eyes fixed on the floor, his usual arrogance erased by his recent corporate termination. Richard walked with a slow, heavy step. The frozen bank accounts and the pending forensic audit had aged him 10 years in a matter of days. They took their seats across the glass table. They did not look at me. I sat next to my attorney, my hands folded neatly in my lap. My lungs no longer burned. My mind felt sharp and clear. Despite losing her job in Atlanta and her social media platforms, Madison still carried a sliver of delusion. She glanced at the court reporter, adjusted her posture, and offered a soft, practiced sigh. She believed this deposition was merely a formal negotiation. She thought she could bat her eyelashes, shed a few tears, and charm her way out of the consequences. She assumed her lies carried the same weight in a legal setting as they did on a local internet podcast. The court reporter swore Madison in first. My sister raised her right hand and promised to tell the truth under penalty of perjury. My attorney opened his pristine legal pad. He did not raise his voice. He asked simple, direct questions. He started with the wedding reception. He asked Madison to describe the events leading up to my near drowning. Madison leaned forward, clasping her hands together. She claimed the pool incident was a tragic, spontaneous accident. She stated she merely tapped my shoulder and I lost my footing. She swore under oath that she had no idea I could not swim. She painted herself as a terrified bride who watched a prank go wrong. My lawyer wrote a single note on his pad. He moved on to the intellectual property theft. He asked Madison about the digital portfolio she submitted to the Georgia technology firm. Madison did not flinch. She lied with terrifying ease. She testified that the design files were her own creations. She claimed I was confused and jealous. She stated I was trying to steal credit for her hard work because my own freelance business was failing. My attorney thanked her. He turned his attention to Susan. The court reporter administered the oath to my mother. Susan smiled, a polite, tight smile. My lawyer asked if she possessed any prior knowledge of the portfolio theft. He asked if she ever attempted to force me to sign away my legal copyrights. Susan let out a soft, dismissive laugh. She shook her head. She testified that she knew nothing about any stolen files. She claimed she only visited my apartment building to check on my health. She swore she was merely trying to mediate a simple misunderstanding between two sisters. They locked themselves into their false narratives. They committed perjury on the official legal record. They handed us the rope, and my attorney was ready to pull it tight. My lawyer closed his legal pad. He opened his laptop and connected it to the small speaker system sitting in the center of the glass table. He looked at the defense attorneys sitting across from us. I am entering Exhibit A into the record, my lawyer stated. This is the raw, unedited audio file captured by the hired wedding videographer prior to the reception. Madison frowned. Bradley suddenly sat up straight, his face turning pale. He remembered the lapel microphone. My attorney pressed play. The ambient noise of the country club preparation suite filled the quiet conference room. Then, Madison's voice echoed through the speakers. Make sure the cameras are rolling when I push Scarlett. In the recorded voice said, She cannot swim, so she will panic and start thrashing around. It will go crazy on TikTok. Susan's recorded laughter followed immediately. Just make sure her makeup runs, my mother said through the speaker. I want her to look like a wet rat when she climbs out. My lawyer paused the playback. The silence in the conference room felt heavy enough to crush bone. The color drained from Susan's face, leaving her skin an ashen gray. Madison stared at the speaker, her mouth slightly open, unable to process the reality of her own voice destroying her defense. Their lawyers exchanged panicked, furious glances. Defense attorneys hate surprises, especially surprises that prove their clients just committed perjury. You testified under oath that the incident was a spontaneous accident, my lawyer said, looking directly at Madison. You also testified that you did not know my client was unable to swim. Exhibit A proves premeditation, malice, and perjury. Madison looked down at her hands. She did not have an answer. My attorney did not give them time to breathe. He clicked his mouse again. I am entering Exhibit B into the record, he announced. This is an audio recording of a conversation that took place in the lobby of my client's residence. He pressed play. Susan's voice rang out, clear and arrogant. She borrowed some of your old layouts for her interview, the recorded Susan said. It is called family sharing. She needed premium examples to secure the senior creative director position. Do you know how much that tech firm is paying her? $200,000 a year. My lawyer stopped the recording. He looked at my mother. You testified 5 minutes ago that you knew nothing about the stolen portfolio, he said. Exhibit B proves otherwise. Susan closed her eyes. Her pristine image shattered into a million jagged pieces. She could not charm her way out of a digital recording. My attorney delivered the final strike. He slid a thick stack of printed papers across the glass table. Exhibit C, he stated. These are the certified server access logs. They document the exact minute Bradley downloaded the private portfolio files. They trace the uploads of the forged documents directly to the Internet Protocol address of your shared apartment. Madison broke. The arrogant facade crumbled. She buried her face in her hands and began to sob. Her shoulders heaved. She let out a loud, echoing wail, begging her lawyer to fix the situation. I watched her cry. I felt no pity. This time there were no cameras rolling to capture her performance. There were no podcast hosts offering a shoulder to lean on. There were no internet followers typing supportive comments. There was only a court reporter, her fingers flying across the keys, documenting every single sound of my sister, realizing her fake empire was gone. Her lies held zero power in this room. My attorney was not finished. He turned his attention to the head of the table. He looked at Richard. My father had remained silent throughout the audio playbacks. He watched his wife and daughter self-destruct with a blank, terrified expression. He knew his turn was coming. My lawyer pulled a bound folder from his briefcase. It was the preliminary report from the forensic accounting team. Richard, my attorney, began, his voice cold and precise. The court-ordered forensic audit of the Vivian Family Trust is underway. The initial ledgers paint a very clear picture. We have documented hundreds of thousands of dollars transferred from a designated beneficiary fund directly into Bradley's failing business accounts. We have traced unauthorized withdrawals used to pay for luxury apartment leases and wedding vendors. Richard stared at the folder. He did not try to deny it. He did not try to offer another bribe. You acted as the sole executor, my lawyer continued. You owed a fiduciary duty to my client. Instead, you drained her legal inheritance to fund a lifestyle your younger daughter could not afford. We are preparing to submit these findings to the district attorney. You are facing severe embezzlement charges. My father sat in stunned silence. His hands trembled on the glass tabletop. He looked at Susan, but she refused to meet his eyes. The family that prioritized appearances over basic human decency was now cornered, stripped of their wealth, and facing imminent criminal prosecution. The deposition room felt suffocating for them, but for me, the air had never tasted so sweet. We held all the cards. We built an airtight cage using their own words, their own digital footprints, and their own financial greed. The legal trap had snapped shut, leaving them with zero room to maneuver. The silence in the deposition room lasted for a full minute. The defense attorneys stared at the printed server logs and the audio files playing on my lawyer's laptop. They knew their defense was dead. A civil trial would end in a ruinous financial verdict. Worse, the undeniable evidence of perjury and embezzlement would trigger immediate criminal indictments. Richard's lawyer cleared his throat. He asked for an immediate recess. He ushered my father, my mother Madison, and Bradley out of the glass conference room. We sat at the table and waited. I listened to the faint hum of the air conditioning. I felt a profound sense of calm. They returned 30 minutes later. Their arrogant posture was gone. Richard looked pale and defeated. Susan stared blankly at the floor. Madison hid her face behind her hands. Their legal counsel formally requested a private settlement discussion. They surrendered. They wanted to avoid a criminal trial at any cost. My attorney opened a fresh legal folder. He anticipated this exact moment. He had already drafted the settlement terms. The conditions were severe, non-negotiable, and designed to strip them of every asset they built on my back. The first target was my father. To resolve the civil claims surrounding the trust fund Richard had to repay the stolen inheritance in full. My lawyer demanded 10 years of calculated market interest on top of the principal amount. Richard also had to cover my entire legal bill for the lawsuit. My father did not possess that kind of liquid cash. His bank accounts remained frozen under the audit order. The only way to satisfy the debt and keep his criminal exposure to a minimum was to liquidate his most prized possession. Within a week, a real estate sign appeared on the manicured front lawn of their Mountain Brook estate. The house was listed for a rapid sale. Susan, a woman who spent decades cultivating an image of flawless Southern wealth, suffered a profound public humiliation. She had to host an estate sale to generate quick funds. I heard through mutual acquaintances that her wealthy neighbors walked through her living room, buying her antique furniture, her designer clothing, and her pearl necklaces at steep discount prices. The neighborhood gossip shredded their pristine reputation. Former friends stopped calling. Richard's golf partners avoided him at the clubhouse before his membership was revoked for unpaid dues. They packed their remaining belongings into a rented moving truck. Richard and Susan moved into a modest, outdated townhouse on the outskirts of the city. The luxurious retirement my father planned, funded by my stolen money, evaporated. While my parents lost their social standing, Madison and Bradley faced a much harsher reality. The corporate world does not offer grace to fraudsters. The national cosmetics brand did not just walk away from their $50,000 sponsorship advance. Their corporate legal team filed a separate breach of contract lawsuit against Madison and Bradley. My sister tried to fight the claim, but she had no money to hire a defense attorney. She represented herself in civil court and lost spectacularly. The judge ruled in favor of the makeup corporation. The court authorized strict wage garnishment. Madison and Bradley were blacklisted in the tech and digital marketing industries. No reputable firm would hire a woman reported for wire fraud or a man fired for hacking a corporate network. They had to seek employment far outside their chosen fields. Bradley secured a job working the overnight shift at a customer service call center. He traded his tailored suits for a headset answering angry phone calls in a windowless room. Madison found employment folding clothes at a retail store in a dying shopping mall. Every time they received their meager paychecks, the court automatically deducted a significant percentage and sent it directly to the cosmetics brand. They were forced to work exhausting, low-paying jobs just to chip away at a heavy corporate debt. Their luxury high-rise apartment lease expired. Without the stolen trust fund to pay the rent, they faced eviction. They packed their bags and moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment situated near a noisy interstate highway. The glamorous lifestyle influencer who laughed at my drowning now spent her days standing behind a cash register, returning home to a tiny space that shook every time a cargo truck drove past. Customers at the mall never recognized her. Her status as a local celebrity vanished entirely. The final clause of my settlement addressed the intellectual property. I refused to let Madison retain any piece of the brand identity I created. The legal agreement mandated a total surrender of her digital assets. My attorney drafted a transfer of ownership. Madison had to legally sign over her domain names, her brand trademarks, and the login credentials for every social media handle she ever used. A judge categorized her digital empire as seized property, awarding it to me to satisfy the damages from the assault and copyright theft. I sat in my home office on a quiet Thursday evening. I received the encrypted file containing her master passwords. For 3 years, Madison used those accounts to project a fake, perfect life. She used that brand to secure jobs she did not earn and money she did not deserve. She used it to broadcast lies about my mental health. I logged into the primary social media dashboard. I looked at the gray placeholder where her profile picture used to be. I did not keep the accounts. I did not try to sell them to a marketing agency. I scrolled to the bottom of the administration settings. I clicked the button for permanent deletion. A warning prompt appeared on the screen asking if I was certain I wanted to erase the data forever. I clicked yes. The digital footprint of Madison Vivian ceased to exist. I wiped her entire fake identity from the internet. She could never rebuild under that name. She could never reclaim her audience or launch a comeback tour. The consequence was permanent grounded in strict legal reality. Many people expect dramatic family conflicts to end with tearful reconciliations. Society conditions us to believe that blood requires forgiveness. They expect the victim to sit in a courtroom, offer a warm sugar, and pretend the trauma never happened. They want the older sister to take the high road and rebuild the fractured family dinner table. I did not offer a hug. I did not shed a single tear for them. There was no magical forgiveness. I did not owe them absolution. They built a trap, they pushed me into the deep water, and they smiled while I choked. The only reason they felt sorry was because the legal and financial systems they tried to manipulate turned around and crushed them. Forgiveness, without changed behavior, is just an invitation for more abuse. I chose to close the door. I signed the final settlement documents and walked out of my attorney's office with my head held high. My bank account held my recovered inheritance plus the substantial interest. My freelance business was thriving, my client list expanding every week. My lungs were fully healed, taking in deep, clear breaths of Alabama air. I reclaimed my life by enforcing ironclad boundaries. I proved that the strongest form of justice is a quiet, undeniable paper trail. I believed the war was officially over. I assumed the harsh reality of their new lives would keep them far away from me. I underestimated the sheer desperation of a fallen golden child. 6 months after the legal dust settled, my phone received a text from an unknown number, dragging one final unexpected conflict directly to my front door. 6 months passed. The humid summer heat of Alabama gave way to a cool, rainy November. I stood on the wraparound porch of my new home, holding a ceramic mug of hot coffee, watching the rain wash over the sprawling green lawn. I purchased the property in cash, using the recovered trust fund. It sat on 2 acres of quiet land just outside the city limits. No loud highways, no crowded apartment hallways, just the sound of wind moving through the tall pine trees. I owned every square inch of this sanctuary. The deed carried only my name. I held the only set of keys. For the first time in my 30 years, I controlled who walked through my front door. My digital design agency flourished beyond my initial projections. Freed from the burden of managing my sister's fake empire for free, I poured my energy into genuine client relationships. The real estate firm in Huntsville expanded our contract to include regional marketing software. The medical supply company doubled my monthly retainer after I overhauled their digital payment systems. I recently hired a junior developer to handle the overflow of new corporate accounts. I transitioned from a silent, overworked sister hiding in the background into the chief executive of a thriving tech business. The physical trauma of the country club pool faded into a distant memory. My lungs functioned perfectly. I took deep breaths of the crisp autumn air without a single cough or ache in my chest. The doctors cleared me of any lingering secondary drowning risks. I survived the deep end. I navigated the suffocating current my family tried to hold me under. I assumed the legal settlement severed our ties forever. Richard and Susan lived in their cramped townhouse, humbled by the public estate sale and the ongoing tax penalties tied to the trust fund audit. Madison and Bradley remained trapped in their tiny apartment, funneling their minimum wage paychecks directly to the Cosmetics Corporation to satisfy the breach of contract judgment. I built a peaceful life on the foundation of strict, undeniable consequences. On a dreary Tuesday afternoon, the quiet rhythm of my new routine suffered a sudden interruption. I sat at my custom oak desk in my home office, reviewing a branding layout for a new client in Mobile. The rain drummed a steady beat against the large window panes. My cell phone sat on a wireless charging pad near my keyboard. The screen illuminated. A short chime signaled an incoming text message. I glanced at the notification. The sender profile displayed an unknown number. I picked up the device. A brief wave of caution washed over me. I tapped the screen to open the message thread. The text block was long filled with frantic, disjointed sentences. "Scarlett, please do not delete this," the message began. "It is Madison. I had to use a prepaid phone to bypass your lawyer block. Please read this. We are in serious trouble." I leaned back in my ergonomic desk chair. I did not feel a sudden spike of adrenaline. My heart rate remained steady. I read the rest of the text with the detached curiosity of a stranger reading a newspaper article. Madison detailed a grim, desperate reality. Bradley lost his overnight customer service job after arguing with a shift manager. Her retail paycheck barely covered their rent. They received a final disconnection notice from the utility company. If they did not pay the past due balance by 5 o'clock that evening, the power company would shut off their electricity. The winter months were approaching, and their apartment would freeze. Then came the hook. The classic, predictable tactic they relied on for 3 decades. "I know we made mistakes," Madison wrote. "I know things got out of hand at the wedding. But you have so much money now. You have the business and the house. $1,000 is nothing to you, but it would save our lives right now. Please, Scarlett, we are still family. Do not let us freeze in the dark." I stared at those specific words. We are still family. 6 months ago, a message like this might have triggered a profound emotional crisis. I might have felt a nagging sense of guilt. I might have debated the moral implications of letting my own sister suffer in a cold apartment. I might have typed a furious response, demanding an apology or outlining the exact reasons she deserved her current misery. I felt none of those things today. I recognized the message for what it truly was. It was not a genuine plea for reconciliation. It was a transaction. Madison did not miss her older sister. She missed her unpaid digital servant. She missed the machine that funded her illusions. She minimized a premeditated physical assault and a felony copyright theft into things getting out of hand. She reduced years of exploitation into a simple mistake. She wanted to use the concept of family as a weapon to bypass accountability. She expected me to feel guilty for succeeding while she failed, ignoring the fact that my success came from honest labor, while her failure resulted directly from her own greed. I set my coffee mug down on a coaster. I tapped the reply field on my phone. I did not write a long paragraph detailing my lingering hurt. I did not curse at her. I did not demand a handwritten apology. Engaging in a debate would only feed her toxic cycle, providing her with the drama and attention she craved. She wanted an emotional reaction to prove she still held power over me. I typed a single sentence. I crafted it carefully, honoring the journey I survived and the boundaries I forged. "You can have a relationship anytime, Madison," I wrote, "but I am busy building my life." I pressed send. I did not wait for her response. I did not watch the screen to see if the typing indicator bubbled up. I tapped the menu icon in the top right corner of the message thread. I selected the option to block the caller. I confirmed the permanent block. The prepaid number vanished from my phone, locked away in a digital void she could never access again. I placed the device back onto the charging pad. I turned my attention back to the dual monitors on my desk. The client and mobile needed their branding package finalized by Friday. I had real work to do. I had a genuine future to build. Later that evening, the rain tapered off into a gentle mist. I walked back out onto my wraparound porch. The sun dipped below the tree line, painting the Alabama sky in deep shades of indigo and violet. I pulled my knit cardigan tight across my chest, enjoying the crisp evening chill. I thought about the dark water of the country club pool. I remembered the burning in my lungs and the sound of my family laughing while I fought for air. They believed that pushing me under would keep me compliant. They thought forcing me to choke would secure their power. They were wrong. The water did not destroy me. It washed away my illusions. It cleared my vision, allowing me to see the predators standing at the edge of the pool. When your pain is dismissed as a joke for someone else to monetize, you do not have to smile and pretend it is funny. When your hard work is stolen to prop up a golden child, you do not have to accept the role of a silent victim just to keep a toxic peace. You protect yourself. You document the facts, you secure your assets. You refuse to let abusers define your worth. You hand the evidence over to the very legal systems they thought they could outsmart, and you let the consequences fall where they belong. Self-respect is the quietest, most devastating form of justice. You never have to scream to be heard. You never have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You simply stop funding their illusions and walk away. I took a deep breath of the clean, cool air. My lungs felt strong. My home stood quiet and secure. The estate was mine. The business was mine. My future belonged entirely to me. If you have ever been pushed into the deep end by the people who were supposed to protect you, I hope this story reminds you of your own strength. You do not have to stay in the water. You can climb out, reclaim your ground, and leave them behind on the shore. Thank you for spending your time with me today. If you found value in this journey, please subscribe to Grape Vengeance so you never miss another story of truth and accountability. Leave a comment below sharing a moment when you had to enforce a strict boundary in your own life. I read every single one. Stay safe, stay strong, and remember that you hold the pen to your own story.